Aloha means love. Aloha also means respect. Mahalo means thank you. Mahalo also means love. Mahalo also means respect. And aloha means thank you. America is mahalo and America is aloha. America is respect, thanks, and love. I want to admit to America, ho opo 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 ono ono, which is to say, I love you. Forgive me. I'm sorry. Thank you. It's important to realize that I really do respect representative democracy, because representative democracy is entirely abolitionist. Abolitionist is simply, let us free people from tyranny, let us free people from oppression. De Opresso, Liber. And that is Latin for to free the oppressed. The Special Forces motto. America has liberated the world from the tyranny of what you may call kingdoms and empires, of who in the past inflicted a lot of pressure upon the people, where they, in average civilian life, did not have many decisions upon regulations and rules, and what to say, what not to say, what to wear, what not to wear, in style, in clothing, what type of music they heard, or what type of music they did not hear. It's interesting to realize how America has freed the world in representative democracy. It's been an honorable path because it has allowed us the freedom to actually be able to be ourselves internationally. In all nations that respect voting. Every country basically is in a stage of democracy, which is a stage of American government. America was the first democracy, of representative democracy. And every country really has a type of democracy in it. Before George Washington, there was no president in the world. George Washington was the first president from the United States Army, a general. And this has spread to every single country. I do believe. And every nation that claims a democracy claims a foundation in American government. If you understand the cabinet structure, that's American, in every nation mostly. And military structure, the same. We have many things in common in every nation. Flags. We have borders. We have what we call police in every nation. Ambulance, called ambulance, with the lights above. Every military has a camouflage. Remember how in royal times it was basically not camouflage. It was more or less traditional or fancy. And now, sorry to use that word, what I mean is it was more like Roman military or Mithraic military inspired. And from representative democracy, in kindness, we have grown to have camouflage. And every nation's military has camouflage. And that's an American reality. In every nation we have a version of the National Institute of Health, I think. We have basic protocols that are voting based, putting it that way. If you notice the similarities between every nation, then you'll find a United Nations commonality. The United Nations is in America. It's in New York City. The United States is the foundation of the United Nations and the foundations of NATO. So we are very proud as Americans of representative democracy. And I will always respect representative democracy for what representative democracy represents in core, which is to free the oppressed, or to free those that are captive and have no other way out. Now, we have a lot more room to grow and more to do, and we still have a few presidencies left until I believe, and basically firmly believe, that I will lead, and we will be better and better and better. I hold little complaints, no complaints. I do not complain about representative democracy, because this has brought structure to the world. This has brought technology, mechanisms, like engines, modern medicine, call it compound pills, and instruments of copywriting literature, copywriting text, the patenting system, all that's American. And America is truly the government of the world. And this government is based on freedom. Now, we still have some obstacles. That's obvious. The obstacle is to produce continuously an effort to liberate individuals from communism. Now, communism, in essence, by the Communist Manifesto, if you guys have ever read it, it's actually directly, word for word, by the first 2 pages, against all Western establishment. I mean, that's pretty directly said there. It's against Western establishment. Against. That's what it is, against. And in philosophy, there's no such a thing as to be against. You cannot really be against something forever. Things become better. We become allies. We cooperate. We win. And we get together. A system that is consistently against something will never be a real system. And the Communist Manifesto is against. It says against. The word against continuously. Karl Marx is a philosopher to himself, perhaps, but his philosophy really is not consistent in the logic that professional philosophers from history have pronounced a necessity, inadequate, and fluid, and realistic argument. God is not against God, guys. Ladies, heaven is not against heaven. The angels are not against angels. And because of that, one can never be always against. It's clear that the Communist Manifesto has a time to fade. When things become multilateral, it should change. Reverse psychology has a reverse, which is affirmative thinking, positive thinking. To think well of oneself. For self-improvement, for amelioration, to nurture, to protect, and then to be able to project that, and to be able to help influence others through good and essential conversation, meditation, one-to-one, upon the topics that make us feel good and true and real about ourselves. I wish firmly one day that in communist nations, people will be allowed to be positive. Will be allowed to say, I love you, to everybody in those nations. That, for example, today in communist Russia, that an average citizen can say, I love you to anyone. Or to say, peace be with you to everyone. Or to say, aloha to everybody and be safe that way. I wish one day that in communist Cuba, one day, one may say, I am made of love. And I am made of peace. And I am only peace and only love. And I want to be that peaceful love all the time. I hope one day that philosophy will be allowed in those nations. That in communist China, religion will be allowed to have existence and not a nihilistic base like Chinese Zen that is so strongly emphasized that it does not make sense, when Chinese Zen makes a lot of sense to the conscious receptivity of an absolute reflection from a conscious background. Chinese Zen's pretty simple. The universe is fake, heaven is real. Sounds good to me. I hope one day that China will allow heaven's reality to be spoken by its people. One to one, without discrimination of philosophy. I hope one day that in Nicaragua people will be able to speak of the divinity of nature out loud and not be ostracized for that philosophy. That one can say that a tree has a soul and speaks to a tree out loud and is not thought of as irresponsible to the culture and the mannerism of a work ethic. I hope one day that in Venezuela people will actually be allowed to live their native traditions and not be forced to be basically so hardworking for something that is so passive to monatomic anti-gravity to propel and push engines to the next level. A monatomic substance is basically a neutral base magnetic element. Put it that way. So, I hope one day that Venezuela will understand that that's more important than petrol. In respect, I hope one day that in Russia people will be allowed to put positive philosophical words to their electronic music and not fear to be ostracized and to be thought of as radical to something that to many Russians makes sense, which is the other side, the pure experience of bliss, or call it real ecstasy. I hope one day that communist nations will not force people to do things that people feel they could do better in a different way. Many of us have work in America that we can help improve because it's corporate. And if we think this method is better to make finance, and that finance can help grow the nurturing environment of the families involved, from boss to partner to co-worker, then let's go. I hope one day that we'll be able to free communist nations in a better way, when we understand that communist nations will not always be against the Bible or against us in Western tradition. I hope so, because I don't know if in 300 years they will still have that book if their successful trajectory works, and that's not gonna happen. So it's not a real philosophy. I'll explain what I just said. I don't know, meaning it's not gonna happen. A nation that is based against another Does not make sense, does it? There's two elements to Western society. There's Rome and there's America. Rome is the monarchy and America is the democracy. Now, from the Declaration of Independence, we are separate from the monarchy. Now, it doesn't mean that we're against the monarchy, but it means that we're separate from the monarchy, independent from. It means that in America, we have no king, no queen, no hierarchy by birth, that by which just because you're born and you get to your level of government status, you have the ability to do what you need to do, whether it is voted upon by the people or not. In America, we're free, because we're free to vote for representatives, despite birth in the exact family that can continuously rule despite error after error, however impossible those errors in heaven may be. Fate guides everything, so what truly is an error? I'm being philosophical. I'm trying to be neutral here. I'm trying to get on everybody's page. In American democracy, we succeeded the world by being the most powerful nation and by being split from monarchies. They failed. And we took over that way in democracy. In fact, the people understood democracy enough that they forced it into democracy. And that's okay. England's a democracy. So we can cooperate with England as a democracy. And that's what we do. France is a democracy. Spain is a democracy. Germany, a democracy. Now, it just so happens that Russia is also a democracy. Cuba is a democracy. Even North Korea is a democracy. We have every ability to succeed in America by understanding that in abolitionism, which is to free the oppressed, we will succeed more and more and more for our extraterrestrial endeavor. To release the sanction of extraterrestrials on planet Earth, specifically, we need to release as many slaves as possible. That also includes animals. Extraterrestrials, I believe, in my heart, in my own life, I believe, as a human, that a fish is supposed to be in the wild, in a beautiful lake or river, or in the ocean. It's not supposed to be in a fish tank. That suffers the fish. It's actually really mean. It's actually really, really tragic. All the fish does is try to run away. I think extraterrestrials want those fish back in a lake, in a river. Does not matter. Because that's fair. Things like that. If we're willing to cooperate with ideas like that, we'll go so far as humanity. A little effort. Release fish from fish tanks. We'll go so much further. A bird in a cage to extraterrestrials, that is really cruel. The bird is trying to get away all day. Leave the bird alone. It doesn't matter of what happens after, but respect the integrity of those animals trying to leave. You're not better because you put that bird in a cage and you put that fish in a tank. At that level, extraterrestrials want us to free the oppressed, and we need to free animals from situations of deep cruelty. They have a heart, they have emotion, they can feel, they have a sense of morality, and they're telepathic. A bird builds a nest, learns how. It's not just a robot, guys. There's a lot to a bird that learns with telepathy. They can follow spirits just like many mediums can follow spirits in the human realm. Plants have emotion. To put a plant in a pot is not a very nice thing. The roots want to be deep in the ground. An alfalfa plant has roots deep in the ground. It wants to touch the soil of Mother Nature. It wants to get the water. It doesn't need to wait on you to have a pot and rinse water and feed it that way, or to use a hose. That's unnecessary. We need to also free plants from those pots. Religion has failed to teach us these things in strictness nowadays. However, in history, it's been clear. In every great religious background, from native traditions to indigenous traditions all over the world, even the roots of Christianity and Catholicism, those roots, the Essenes, all the way back to ancient Egypt, respect of animals. Respect, if you notice, animals were human-like. If you look at like a human animal, well, because they act like humans, if you really understood them. I'm sure many of us have understood a cat and can say they have a lot of emotions. Well, the same for a squirrel, the same for a fish. Well, guess what? That idea extends to plants, and extends to microbes, and extends to all types of humans and all types of extraterrestrials. All types of life form. It could even have been said that chastity means don't kill too many sperm, because you're living beings themselves. And that's a very serious topic as well in major religions. Now, you're free to do as you do, however, with that concept. However, some would say it's more intelligent to orgasm as a male in a river, and to not actually kill hundreds of thousands of sperm every day. That's a lot. Extraterrestrials have feelings like that. They understand things like that. And if we humans want to evolve into abolitionism and to have the super technologies of these extraterrestrials, some sacrifices of morality we'll have to take in our own morality to have a better morality. Which is to say that if you should release your fish from a fish tank, go for it. If you should release the bird from a cage, do it. You will be respected by the extraterrestrials at that level. And you will be given ability to succeed in your own path, in this life. They care for things like that. And I do too. We can only really function as a people if we really care about other people. To care about extraterrestrials will relieve those sanctions of abolitionism. Because we will show that we can not be so selfish to live fish in a fish tank. As it's suffered its whole life, really desperate to get away, having the same type of fish flakes every single day, same type of food all day, and little bubbles shining in the air. That's not a good life, guys. That sounds like something ETs would really not ever do. And that's why they live underground, in space stations above, in bases where they harm as little as possible. They try to avoid eating plants as well, as little as possible. They don't eat meat as much as possible. They eat alchemical substances as much as possible, and they can survive. Let's say to the best of us. To the best of us. To the best of us. Not all, but to the best of us extraterrestrials. This is easy, guys. It's just an example to say. In abolitionism, democracy goes a lot further. We may not all do that, but I know that in my cabinet, we all will have no fish in fish tanks, and no birds in bird cages, and less plants in pots. And that's how we will be able to have a better relationship with extraterrestrials and have the super medicine, super technologies, and super modes of transportation and, let's just say, information. Super modes of accessing information and technology. A lot of information. By just being a little nicer to other people. It's not hard for me because I really want to make them proud. And I want to go to different planets and be really happy. And come back knowing that we've done well. And that I've done well. You're not doing it for me. You're doing for what history?